Mordor needs a gas station. I need to be able to pull over my car and ask for directions because I just finished the second chapter of book 6 of Lord of the Rings, and I gotta say, I don't even know where I am anymore. And all this is just a praise and a testament to J.R.R. Tolkien for writing such a gloriously complex chapter. I talked about this idea before in a different essay that I wrote. I think on the what chapter was it? The 4th or 5th? The Old Forest chapter. Maybe that's 5th, 6th. And I talked about how that chapter was probably my least favorite up to that point because it was just confusing and hard to get through. But I think it was actually masterfully constructed, so it made me as a reader feel really annoyed, just like the hobbits were in the Old Forest. That chapter has description upon description upon description of trees and brambles and roots and frustrations. And as readers, I'm just wondering, when am I going to get out of all that? And when am I going to get on with it? And it's a chapter that the form matches the function of the chapter for me as a reader. So I actually experienced what the hobbits experience to some extent. And this second chapter of book 6 of Lord of the Rings, which is the Return of the King, when Frodo and Sam are in Mordor, I feel like I need a roadmap like 20 times just to figure out where we are and to figure out what is happening in this story. And this just goes to show the genius of Tolkien and how you cannot do this all the time as an author. You can't do this for an entire book because no one wants to read a book full of confusion and frustration. But every so often, doing this as a writer can be a massive success and a really good tool in your arsenal. And authors do this all the time in small little ways. I actually have a hot take that I think Order of the Phoenix, which is generally considered not the best of the Harry Potter books, is actually the best written book in the series. Because I was forced to read through every chapter and chapter and chapter where that dreadful Dolores Jane Umbridge just does not leave the page. And I think that this really gives you a feel for what the characters go through in a small and infinitesimal way. And in the chapter of Lord of the Rings, I think while Frodo and Sam perhaps weren't really lost in this chapter, and they always kind of had Mount Doom kind of in the vision of where they were going, it's not like they get into Mordor and just make a beeline straight for Mount Doom. They cannot get down this way because there is a city in front of them and they'd be caught. So they skirt the Morgai, this valley between the two mountains. It's like a lesser range in between that has like a valley running through with a greater range, the Efelduath on the other side. And so they follow this all the way up to Mordor. And as I was reading, if I didn't have help from people who were kind of just hanging out with me as I was doing this live read on YouTube a few days ago, I feel like I would have been totally lost and unsure where I was and so confused. And I kind of think that that's how Tolkien wants us to feel to some extent. Because Mordor is a land where things are forgotten. People's names are forgotten, and now even directions are forgotten. This is a land that is cursed and confusing. And there are briars, and there are thorns, and there are soot, and there's ash, and the water tastes oily, and everything just is a maze for you to get through. And they cannot find a way down the Morgai. So they need to traverse for miles and miles and miles around until they can actually get to Mount Doom. It's exhausting work. And this is a chapter. It's a really long chapter in this book where you finish it and you almost feel as exhausted as the characters themselves. It feels like a chapter where you really need to go get a drink of water and take a nice hot bath after. You feel the filth that Sam and Frodo are experiencing. You feel the thirst that they're experiencing. And you feel the frustration of being in this maze of Mordor. And I think this is really chalked up to the idea of Tolkien putting these descriptions in there to kind of help confuse and confound us. I found myself in this chapter realizing that this wasn't really a pleasant read of a chapter. It was a great chapter, but it had me missing the Shire and Lothlorien, and wildly it had me missing the Old Forest, a land with green and trees and beautiful things. And I think that's actually a pretty vital idea that it had me missing the old chapter, because that comes at the beginning of this story. And it's almost there to prep us with the frustrations that we go through in that chapter for when we get to Mordor and then we look back at the Old Forest section with envy saying, I wish I was lost in the Old Forest rather than being lost in Mordor. I think those are like bookends for this story to some extent. And I think because they are two chapters that give us all the frustrations of the hobbits and put us in the shoes with all their frustration and annoyance. So Sam in this even longs to go see Shagrat again for just a drink of water. The book says, at length they stopped and sat side by side, their backs against a boulder. Both were sweating. If Shagrat himself was to offer me a glass of water, I'd shake his hand, said Sam. Now, if that isn't desperation, then I don't know what is. And Tolkien not only lets us see this desperation, and not only lets us see the frustration that the hobbits are experiencing, he lets us actually experience it with the hobbits. So by writing this chapter, we are just so grossed out by Mordor and confused which direction we're going in, so we understand what Frodo and Sam are kind of going through to a small degree. Imagine how frustrating it would be to just see Mount Doom, the very place that you just need to get, but you just cannot get there because you're literally just circling Mordor. It's insane. But again, all this is to say, it's another win for Tolkien and his genius writing abilities. I think this is just another one of those examples where he really immerses you into the shoes of whoever you're reading. And he does this better than any author that I've ever experienced. So sometimes when a character is experiencing, joy, you're there with the character. In the choices of Master Samwise, when Sam is experiencing grief, he puts you into the shoes of Sam for that chapter, just letting you kind of marinate in the grief. And for these chapters where it's confusing and you kind of feel lost, he does a great job as an author of giving you a lot of description and kind of making you feel lost while trying to guide you through this like maze of a chapter. I just think it's such excellent writing, even though it sometimes frustrates me where I feel like I need to look at a map every other paragraph. It's still just so excellent. I don't think I can find anything to like detract from my love of J.R.R. Tolkien right now. I just think he is such a preeminent, incredible, perfect author. But that's all I got for you today. If you made it this far, make sure you subscribe. You can like the video. You can also become a member for some members only content, early access videos, and it's Christmas, so why not? Treat yourself. And you can also donate to a video if you want. And as always, remember to look toward Numenor that was, and beyond to Elven home that is, and to that which is beyond Elven home and will ever be. I'll see you in the next one.